Hello there, and welcome to Voices of Parenting podcast with me, your host, Mussi Diskin, where we talk about all things parenting, relationship, and nurture heart approach. Um, this for our regulars, welcome back. I know we had a little break here, and I have had to put a pause on interviews with other people. So for the next little while, I'm going to give you little special episodes with different recordings, some of which are me responding to specific question or topic, and some are recordings of the group coaching continued education classes that I give. Special sneak preview for you to get a feel of what we do in those classes. And I hope you enjoy. Everybody, and welcome. Today, we are going to talk about a scenario where we have a kid who really, really loves his candy and his sugar, has a sweet tooth, but isn't usually allowed to have it. So many of us in today's day and age are aware of the risks of sugar and food coloring and the dangers, and we eliminate it by not having it in our house. So let's paint a picture of a child who doesn't really have it at home, and loves it and is finding ways to sneak it. So whether they have a stash in their room that they're sneaking, or they're sneaking from the stash that they found in the kitchen, they're maybe getting their friends to give them some, so that they have their extra stash, whatever it is, and you find out. So it's, you see that they have it, but they don't know that you see necessarily. They're trying really hard to hide it, and they're lying about it. What's our next steps? What's our way forward? So let's break this down a little bit about if this is the scenario, if this is what's happening, what's behind that, and what's brought us here to this point. So the thing about a situation like this is, actually, in a way, it's way harder, but in a way it's easier, because this child is basically already letting us know that we don't have control over them. This child is already letting us know, if you don't let me, I'll just find a way. So it's forcing us to kind of fast forward parenting to an even older child or an adult where we really don't have control. And the value of that, of being in a position of parenting where we're aware of the fact that we don't have control, or where we're choosing not to control, the value of that is that we're setting them on a path of success for their adulthood and for making good choices for themselves when they're younger and it matters less. So the idea of making lots of mistakes and eating lots of unhealthy things and having a super unhealthy lifestyle, and having to learn and change your patterns and make a decision to be healthier, it's gonna get harder, and it's gonna have a bigger effect later. The younger they are, the less it affects them, just because they're so healthy. They're such young machines. Their bodies are so healthy, and so they can be okay with so much less, which also makes it a little bit longer for them to learn. Like, when we're older, we feel the difference so much, so we know, like, don't eat that. And when they're younger, they can go a long time and not realize that. So that's the hard part as a parent, to let go of that time frame that it takes them to learn. But I think, regardless, a child who's lying and hiding is already at a point that they're saying, if you try to control this, if you try to snap this out of me, I'm going to find a way behind your back. So that's kind of over. Like, it's too late. Unless, obviously, I want to get really punitive and really controlling, which, for most of you listening to this, I already know, just by the fact that you're listening to me talk, that you do care about your relationship with your children, and that you do want to maintain that and their emotional health and well-being over control and compliance, because that's kind of my thing. So I don't think you'd be talking to me if not. So with all that being said, so now I want to set this child up for, like, optimal success, without it being controlling and without him being forceful. I want to basically be in a position where I am saying that it is okay for them to continue doing whatever they're doing, for the hope that I can inspire them and they can inspire themselves to change on their own. And so I want to think about, what are the ways to do that in the fastest way, the most optimal way, the most effective way possible. And I want to consider things like siblings, younger siblings especially, who like I am able to control a little bit more, and I do want to keep healthy. And I want to consider the future and the risks and, everything like that. So I do want to be realistic about this, but also being realistic is recognizing that they're already hiding it. So we're already past that, you know, that road mark, that it's done. They're already saying they're going to do it no matter what. So let's talk about food a little bit. And I'm not a food expert. I'm not going to pretend I am. I have dabbled with it myself. I have siblings that are more into it, less into it. So I've heard a lot about it. I've read some things, heard some things, but there are people out there that are much more of experts around food than I am. But what I will say, like anything else, food is a staple. It's something that we are going to have a relationship with no matter what. And also food can be used as a drug and can be used very unhealthily. And like anything in life, something that's forbidden and that's very, very, very rigid and we're starving for, especially if we have little itty bitty bit of tastes of it because we have to survive, the shame and the forbiddenness of it being absolutely rigid and not okay is going to drive somebody to struggle with it even more. Because that sense of I shouldn't and I can't is so confining that ultimately it'll just break. I mean, the whole idea of diet culture and very rigid diets, very rigid, only eat this, only eat that, a lot of times ends up creating a burnout that makes a binge that's way worse than anything that would have been if they just allowed it to just happen. What ideally the best way would be to have a healthy relationship with food where I'm listening to my body. This is my opinion. Intuitive eating is a big culture out there. Look it up. They have books, they have podcasts, intuitive eating. But the idea is that I'm listening to my body and I'm experiencing eating the food and I'm experiencing how the food feels and I'm making choices based on that. And I'm really aligned and in sync with what my body actually needs and what's actually telling me. And so my diet will automatically become more healthy. My diet will automatically be serving me because I'm listening to the responses. And so that is kind of where I'd love personally for my kids to be. A relationship with food where they are completely autonomous and they're making their choices based on what their bodies are telling them, not what I'm telling them, not what the world is telling them, but what their bodies are telling them. In order for that to happen, I need to give them space to explore that. I need to allow them to really make the choices without me managing the choices. Because as long as I'm telling them 3 more bites, or as long as I'm telling them know this or know that, they can't really play with it. They can't really listen to themselves. I think the biggest thing we do when our kids are super young is force them to eat more than they want. And at that point, it's not an issue of candy and it's not an issue of food coloring. It's an issue of us feeling like they only ate 2 pieces of macaroni. How could they possibly be full? But let them say they're full, honor that. Say, okay, you ate, great, you're full. What does your tummy feel? How does your body feel? Great, you're full. Come, wash your hands. And then let them get hungry and ask for food if they're, and then we can talk about maybe having them not be able to eat later if we want. So the clarity is we eat at mealtime to help support them in making the choice to eat at mealtime and not later. But having them experience the autonomy of saying I'm full and that being respected and then experiencing the experience of that is super important. So we're already talking about an older kid who's hiding stuff. Actually, my son was hiding stuff when he was very, very young. So this was not an older kid. It could happen to a younger kid too. But they're already hiding stuff. We know that there's this sense of shame because hiding means I know that I shouldn't be doing this. I know that I'll get in trouble if I do this. So there's a sense of shame and doing something wrong that we're trying to hide, and a sense of need. I need this or I won't be okay. I need this because it feels so good to me, or I can't, I don't want to manage without it. I need it. And so giving them back their autonomy and literally saying something like, I'm not going to make these choices for you anymore. And being completely, completely open about why. Because I want you to become in sync with your body. I want you to become aware of what it feels like when I eat this and what it feels like when I eat that. And honestly, who am I to say that this isn't good and this is good for you? If you're the one in your body, you need to know what's good for you and what's not good for you. And it's really hard for me because I read the studies and because I know how it makes me feel. And so when I see you eating this poison, because it is poison, it hurts me because I love you, but I'm going to try to control myself to not respond to that because I really know that it's your life ultimately and it's your body ultimately, and only you can really know how it affects you. So I need to give you that trust back. I need to give you your life back. I need to give you the choices back. And I'm going to allow you to have your stuff. Maybe I don't want to buy it for them. Maybe, I don't want to be a part of them having it. But if they get it themselves, however they get it, whether they're asking off of friends or buying it with their own money, I can honor their resourcefulness in doing that, and allow them to have their space in the kitchen or wherever it is. They can have a lock on it if they want, so the siblings can't get to it. And the piece about the siblings would be letting the siblings know they bought it themselves. They got it themselves. I'm not getting, and yes, there's a risk of the siblings being like, okay, I'm going to save some money so I can get myself some candy. But I want to think about also them having their autonomy and them starting this process without the shame, without the having to hide, which ultimately in the long run is helpful, even though right now it feels so harmful. There is the risk of them having an addiction. There is a risk of them getting so attached to this candy, but the forceful not allowing them to have that connection with the candy is in the long run more harmful because then the shame of hiding and the shame of stealing and the shame of doing it when they know they shouldn't is going to keep them attached to that behavior longer. So when they get their hands on it, eventually it's going to be so much more exciting and so much more emotionally big. We want to make it neutral. We want to make it not have any energy. We want to make it boring. We want to make it just be the sheer experience of trying something and deciding what your opinion is about it and how it works for you. So first off, I want to say that if a kid is already sort of out of control about this, and this is true really of any behavior, they're anyways doing it, make it now be completely in their hands. That does not mean that your opinion changes. Your opinion can still be no. You can still use the word poison if you want, neutrally. When you're saying, the reason why I'm getting out of the way is not because I've changed my rules and my opinions. It's because you're big enough and old enough to be autonomous. You're big enough and old enough to have your own choices. I see that you're already making your own choices. And honestly, that tells me you're mature enough to do it. Like, the fact that you're making your own choices shows me that I was behind in being attuned with you. You're making your own choices, which means you're old enough to make your own choices. So I love that about you, that you're making your own choices. And honestly, I trust you to be in sync with your body. Now let's start bringing in our 3 stands. Okay. Now let's start bringing in how we're going to hopefully inspire them and walk them into better choices and be an aid and support in them doing this process as fast as possible and aligned with our actual values as much as possible. So what does that look like? When my child has his own thing of candy and he is eating it and he's gorging it and he is savoring it, and I can walk out of the room. I can focus on something else, but I'm not going to lecture them. And I'm not going to start giving opinions of how much they should eat and how much they shouldn't eat. And the only thing I'm going to say is, I see what you're doing. If I want to say something, I'm going to say, I see you eating like 15 airheads full of sugar and food coloring. And you know what? I'm not going to say anything because I trust you to feel how this makes your body feel, to know what it's doing to you, and to make the best choice for your body. I'm saying that out loud also for me because it's scary to watch them poison themselves. So I'm saying that out loud also for me. I trust you to make your own choices. And I'm reinforcing or reminding them in a way that is congruent with the 3 stands, reminding them to check in with their body. By saying, I trust you to know how this is making you feel, I'm reminding them to check in with how they feel because I said it, but I said it in a way that I'm not reminding them. I said it in a way that I'm trusting them. I'm not saying anything now. I'm not. Stand 2, they're eating a vegetable. They're eating dinner. They're eating chocolate. They're eating ice cream. They're eating something without food coloring. They're eating something, they say they don't finish their entire helping of cake. They don't finish their entire, even if it's their third piece of cake, but they don't finish the third piece of cake. I am going to show up for those moments. I am going to tell them, I noticed that. And actually, remember I told you that I'm ready for you to make your own choices and be autonomous over your food and your experience with your food. Look how you did that. You just did that. You just realized you were full. You realized you're sick of it. They might even say, oh, I'm so sick of this. I don't want this anymore. That is such a big moment. Yes, it was 3 pieces later, but you realized you were going to burst if you had another bite and you stopped. That is you attuning to your body. That is you listening to your body. That is you making a decision based on what your body is telling you. Do you know how advanced you are? There are adults who have no idea what their body feels ever. Like, you are making decisions based on what your body is telling you. Honestly, guys, that is the biggest skill for healthy eating for the rest of their life. Making decisions based on what their body is telling them. Even if they're going to be eating cereal and milk, frozen pizza, plain bagels, and candy till they're 25, when 25 hits and they don't feel good anymore, they'll know that. They'll say, oh, I'm 25. I don't feel good anymore. I don't think this food is serving me. I'm ready to make a decision. And that's when it matters more. It matters from 25 to 120 matters a lot more than right now. They need to be able to have the inner strength to make that change at 25 and to be aligned with their body enough to say, this isn't serving me. I don't feel energized. I don't feel good. I want to make that choice. And they need to not be attached to the shame of the fact that they've only been eating frozen pizza till then, to be able to be free of it and say, never mind, I don't want frozen pizza anymore. I'm going to make myself a salad. Like, that takes inner wealth, and that takes a confidence, and that takes a lack of shame to be able to just be like, no more frozen pizza. So I want them to eat the frozen pizza and feel good about it and know how it makes them feel. That's the biggest skill I want them to have, to know how it makes them feel. And that's it. And I'm honoring when they're making choices about how it feels, even the bad choices. So it's like, hey, if you feel like you're up for 15 airheads, I could never eat that. That would make me crazy. But you know what your body can handle. If your body can handle that, you are so lucky. You are so lucky. Like, okay. And then my stand 3, my clarity is, first of all, education. Education does matter. I do want them to know what food does to them. So maybe I want to watch a show as a family if I'm, careful with if I'm careful with secular media, maybe ask a professional or find something that you do approve of, watch it first. But sit down and watch a show about what happens to our bodies and bring, some healthy popcorn to eat with it so that it's a fun family activity. Go to a science museum, look inside people, look at obese bodies, talk about the stuff not related to like, I'm going to teach you why you should never eat candy, but like allow the conversations and the awareness of what candy does to you. Do an experiment with teeth. Put a tooth into next time they lose their teeth, if you have kids still losing their teeth, keep them and put them in a cup of soda. The experiment, you put it in a cup of Coke, you put it in a glass of vinegar, you put it in a glass of water, you put it in a glass of coffee. You do these things and you watch it disintegrate and you see what disintegrates faster and how this works. Allow scientifically for them to be really aware of what vegetables do and what all that the food chart. Talk about this stuff, make it part of what they know, just like you would teach them anything else, so that when they're 25 and they're feeling horrible, they go, oh yeah, it's the vegetables. I know vegetables have a lot of, whatever they have in them. I should be eating more vegetables. Let them really get it. Like, the biggest lesson, like, for let's say for smoking, is like, you see a lung that's healthy and you see a lung that is gray. Seeing a lung that's gray is scary. It's like, oh my gosh, that does that. Someone who already smokes, who's shown a lung that's gray and is like, this is what's going to happen to you if you continue smoking, that's shame. That's not helpful. So that's just going to make them hate themselves for smoking and smoke more. That's how addiction works. So it's never in response to the candy eating. It's never in response to the overeating, but just conversations, shows, books in the house, field trips, things we do, things we talk about. Interesting fact. I was listening to a nutritionist today and she said that broccoli, blah, 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 blah. Isn't it fascinating? Now they know. Great. Now they can do what they want with it. Always having healthy food available, always having it out, always having the ingredients in my fridge, talking out loud about myself. I'm so proud of myself. Today, I didn't have time for healthy food and I really wanted to just pull out something and microwave it. But you know what? I took the time and I made myself a healthy salad and I added my protein and I added my carbs and I felt so good after and I had so much energy and I'm feeling so healthy. And I didn't eat the chocolate even though I wanted to. I'm so proud of myself. We're educating them, but we're not shaming them and we're not controlling them. Those are different things. We're giving them autonomy and we're letting them become attuned and aware to their inner experience so that the decisions they make are aligned with that forever. That's such a great and incredible gift we can give them. And then the clarity of like what your own rule is going to be in your house. I say that only you can decide that. Is it going to be they can have their own candy stash, but they can only eat it after mealtime? Is it that they can't eat it right before mealtime? Is it that they can't eat it a half an hour before mealtime? Is it that they can't eat it when their siblings are around? Is it that they have to share with their siblings if they eat it in front of their siblings? Is it that there is a certain amount of grams of sugar that they can eat a day? There's a risk with that. Any limit you set, there's a risk of them not liking it and resist and rebelling against it and hiding again. But you can try, and maybe that, you also know your child and you know what's going to push them past the edge. And you can try, you can say, listen, I really want you to have the same autonomy. I want you to have that autonomy, da, da, da. But in my house, until you're an adult, until you live in your own hands, I do have some limits. And those limits are, it has to be after you eat something healthy or you have to offset it with protein. I remember when I was trying to change my diet, because my examples, by the way, of eating frozen pizza, that was me. After my second baby, I had the worst diet ever. And I was so depleted after my second baby, just from having two babies on literally nothing. My mental health went crazy. And thank God I had the right friends at the right time. I had a nutritionist friend and a coach I was speaking to who invited me to look at what I was eating. But at the time, it was such a big deal for me to change. My coach said, eat as many carbs as you want, but you have to eat double the amount of protein. So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm eating a piece of pizza. Now I have to eat like handfuls of cheese, which isn't even the healthiest. And I'm not there anymore. But at that time, it was like, okay, fine. Well, if you want that much candy, you have to eat that much protein. Look at the package, look at the grams. It could be fun. Your clarity of what your rules are going to be is yours. But remember the long term. Remember what you're building them towards. Remember that if they're a kid who's listening to their body and knowing how things are making them feel when they are older and it is affecting them, they'll know that and they'll be ready to make that change on their own in a way that'll last without the shame, that will stick. That's so empowering and such a gift that we could give them. And again, they're already showing you can't control me because they're hiding it and lying. So let them have that adult experience sooner. Let them build on that autonomy and that awareness sooner. So good luck and have fun.